From Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium in Fayetteville, Arkansas, CST is proud to bring you Arkansas football. Today it's the first look at the 2014 Razorback football team as they hit the field for the annual Red-White Spring Football Game. We welcome you inside our broadcast booth, and we're glad that you're with us. I'm Scott Inman along with Razorback great Quinn Grovey. Looking forward to getting a look at these Hogs in their 15th and final spring football practice. Well, Brett Bielema, Quinn, told me earlier this week as he heads into his second year, the biggest difference between year one and year two is that he knows his players better. And that may seem like a very simple thing, but it means a lot.
It means a lot. When you talk about understanding the players and understanding the coaches, you got a great opportunity to get more familiar with the people, and they can understand what you need from a system standpoint. These guys have picked up on what coach is selling. They believe in what coach is selling, and they're ready to have a great spring game.
Well, and one thing too, Quinn, on the offensive side of the football, tremendous consistency. All of the coaching staff is back. On the defensive side of the football, there's been tremendous turnover, though. 3 new coaches, including a new coordinator. What does that change look like to you?
Well, you got a lot of players on defense that really got to understand what's going on. They're trying to communicate with one another, so there's going to be some consistency that they got to really try to get together. This is a defense that's going to want to be attacking defense, but when you have 3 new coaches, boy, you really got to get real comfortable with one another, and that's really the big thing that they got to try to figure out today.
It is the ones versus the world. So what does that format look like? We'll talk about that and get this thing underway when we continue from Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium. Stay with us. The Red-White game is coming up in minutes.
An absolutely gorgeous spring day in the Ozarks as we get set to start the Red-White game. But first, let's go downstairs to the third member of our broadcast team. Mike Neighbors is on the sidelines. Mike.
Thanks a lot, guys. You know, spring games are fun, and one of the great things about spring games, well, you don't have to follow the rules. You can create your own rules. Well, Brett Bielema has done just that. His format, ones against the world, which means the first teamers, the ones against everybody else. The ones will be in the red uniforms. The white team will be everybody else, and they'll rotate, even though they'll share the same sidelines. Now, all the coaches will abandon the press box. It will be one big, happy Hog family on the sidelines, all the coaches, all the players. After each score, we're also flexible. Coach Bielema will decide the ball placement between the 25 and the 50-yard line to account for different situations. Special teams, they're not immune from the changes either. There'll be a kicking contest at the end of the first and third quarter. And the second half, we will shift to a running clock. Lots of changes. Should be a lot of fun. We're ready to go here in the red and white game. Back to you guys.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. And there have been some spirited practices this spring on the Razorback team, and spirited competition of sorts between 2 brothers, a sibling rivalry, although, Quinn, the starting job is settled science going into the fall.
Absolutely. It's Brandon Allen, no doubt about it. He's the guy that's going to be the leader, and the junior is really taking on that leadership role. He's taking a more vocal role with the team. He's being more active. He's getting on receivers whenever they're not running their correct routes. So it's a great job for Brandon. He really wants to get that bad taste out of his mouth, and I'm anxious to see how he does.
All right, so take a look at the starters for the red team. Again, these are the ones. Dan Skipper, Mitch Smothers, Luke Charpentier, and Denver Kirkland, along with Bray Cook, the big guys up front. And there has been a lot of competition and a lot of switching back and forth on the positions on the offensive line. We might even see Mitch Smothers at center today. A.J. Derby, you may recognize that name. He was the backup quarterback in 2013, but in spring camp was switched to tight end and has seemed to be a very natural fit at that position. How about in the backfield? Well, we talked about Brandon Allen calling the signals. Jonathan Williams, Cody Walker kind of filling that Kiero Small role at fullback. Demetrius Wilson, Keon Hatcher at the wideouts, but we'll also see some new guys, and we'll talk about them as we go along. And Alex Collins, of course, will be right behind Jonathan Williams in getting some snaps. There is Keon Hatcher, one of the returners at wide receiver for this red team. They'll start their first possession of the game at their own 25-yard line. And Brandon Allen, all of the quarterbacks wearing the green jerseys today. And that means no contact, so we'll do our best to tell you who is actually under center. Brandon will be calling the signals for the red, and on the white squad, it's Austin Allen, and we'll also see Rafe Peavy. First snap of the red-white game, and it's Jonathan Williams looking for room on the right side, and he gets about a 4-yard gain. Jonathan Williams for 5 yards. Otha Peters on the stop. for the white team. Did you look at Brandon Allen's stats, Quinn, from last year?
Brandon Allen had a decent year. You know, he would want to get that bad taste out of his mouth. He only went for 1,500 yards and only had a 49% completion percent. So he wants to definitely get that well into the 60s.
Allen will go from the shotgun on a 2nd down and 5 play. He looks left, and the ball batted into the air, and it might have been picked off by the white squad. It is. And now Allen on the play fake. On 2nd down, throws it complete at the 25-yard line to Damon Mitchell, and that's Doo-Wop Mitchell. You're talking about Robert Thomas and Byron Jones and Chris Smith going to the NFL, and you see some of that talent on the defensive side of the ball there. The board first. And he does. The Reds starts from their own 25-yard line. Allen's going to throw, though, and he's got Keon Hatcher, but he is met immediately. It's Collins, and Collins met in the backfield by another exciting player that can really do some things, and he hits a big hole. Can't get through the second layer of the defense. Very good. His speed maybe even improving, coaches say. Another big hole for Marshall, and he breaks one tackle, can't get through the last guy. Jonathan Williams gets the carry, and Jonathan Williams dragging a tackler inside the 5, and he is pushed out of bounds. All control, time-consuming drive that's taken us close to a minute to go, and Jonathan Williams puts his nose down and crosses the goal line for a Red touchdown. Allen on a play fake. He's got time, zips it out complete at the 39-yard line. And Rafe Peavy is your quarterback, and he hits a perfect strike.
Points on the board as well, so it's fun.
All right, you're looking ahead to an NFL career. You've had a ton of interviews. You've been through this process. You heard what it was like, but what's it been like for you?
See more of that from the corners this fall as well, and there's a draw play that goes nowhere either. The red team defense sniffing that out.
Defensive front and a big defensive front. You really want to play that mano-a-mano.
Good run here by Collins as he breaks into the secondary, tripped up inside the 30-yard line. And the handoff goes to Connor McPherson at the team until August. Brandon Allen hands off to Corliss Mitchell. Behind his blocker, gets into the secondary, and see ya! Corliss Mitchell with breakaway speed. Touchdown, Red! Deferred to Alex Collins, and here's a pick for the red team, and that will be taken back to the house. Standing beside Austin Allen on 1st and 10. Allen with time, and he's hit from behind. The ball is loose. That's going to be a fumble. Darius Philon picks it up, and he's going to return it for another defensive touchdown. The Reds slow to get started on offense, but the defense has taken over here, and another big pop. Looking over the middle into heavy traffic, is batted up and picked off again. His 2nd interception of the day.
You got one more play, which would be a Hail Mary.
Allen sets up to throw. Up the sidelines, got a man, and he's got a touchdown. Eric Hawkins.
Welcome back to Fayetteville, Arkansas, everybody. What a great first half for the red and white game, and we're pretty busy at halftime, too. Joining me, Cale Gober, Assistant AD for Development here at Arkansas, and I tell you what, you couldn't ask for a better day, could you?
This is wonderful weather. You know, the only thing you could be doing other than this would be playing golf, I bet, but this is a great selection. We got a good crowd out, a rambunctious bunch, so I'm glad they're into the game.
All right, Coach Bielema's busy with football. You're busy as well. Let's talk about that Never Yield campaign. You just unveiled the new logo. I know that's drawn a lot of excitement from Big Suey Nation here.
It has, and rightfully so. Our Never Yield campaign is part of Campaign Arkansas. It's our university's capital campaign, and our initiative is the Never Yield aspect of it. It's a $213 million campaign. Mainly encompasses 3 facilities that we have going right now. One is the baseball track training center, which is about to be completed in a couple of weeks. The second one is the Student Athlete Success Center, which is a $20 to $25 million facility, half academic, half dining, to really get the holistic approach for our student athletes, the education piece. And then the last one that everybody's excited about, obviously, and rightfully so, is the Basketball Performance Center. Being the last school in the SEC to get one, it's obviously a missing piece that Mike and his program and Jimmy and his program that they need to take their programs to the level that all the fans want it to be at. So those are great projects that we have going on, and the people in the stands are the ones that make it happen.
You want to raise $70 million by 2020, and of course you have a solid base to do that. Just talk about what a difference this makes in recruiting and everything that surrounds that.
Yeah, well, our campaign is $213 million, which is a big ask, but our fans have never let us down, and so we don't expect them to now. They've never failed us, and great expectations come with great commitment, and that's what we want our fans to do, is to step up, and we want the same product that they want, and it takes time to build. This is no different than a business. It takes you a couple of years to get yourself onto your feet, and we're under a great start. Coach B with football, and as I said, Coach A and Jimmy with basketball. We're excited that our fans are excited about it, and it shows today with the excitement that's here.
Yeah, you get to combine everything in this spring game weekend. You have baseball, you have a lot of the alumni back, and you have the weather too. Just talk about what a big weekend this is, not only for what you do, but for everybody.
It's fun for everybody. And whenever you go out and you see the Razor Fest that our marketing team did a great job with, whenever you see the excitement that they have around our program, I think that's indicative of the excitement going into next year. And, people are always waiting on football season. And this is kind of exciting to sit here and watch the red and white out here. And our fans are excited because I think they see the process that Coach Bielema is going through right now, getting his guys in, implementing his system. And this weather is incredible. We had a steering committee meeting this morning. We're going to have a baseball first one at 4 and then a nightcap at 7. Got to win 2 over Auburn today, and hopefully we can give our fans some excitement today on the diamond as well.
That's good stuff. Well, listen, I know it's a busy weekend. I appreciate you taking the time. Enjoy the second half.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Go Hogs.
All right, Cale Gober, assistant AD for development here at Arkansas.
The ability is there. Here's a big hole for Jonathan Williams, and Williams is going to have the first down and a lot more. He gets into white territory across the 50 and 10 push-ups. Second down and 10. Allen looking it into Hunter Henry, who makes the catch and steps out of bounds immediately. Run that route, don't you?
Absolutely.
Takes a little time to develop. Allen has a man out of the flat. It's caught by Arends, and it's a touchdown for the Red. Not sure who is going to replace Travis Swanson at this point, Quinn. There are a lot of guys who have already been shuffled in and may still be shuffled in. As the red team gets an interception off a deflection, Carroll Washington. Off the play fake, Allen has a man open. It's Hatcher, and Hatcher's got another first down, and he gets inside the 10-yard line. It's red zone time for the Red. Handoff goes to Corliss Marshall. A nice move in the backfield, and Marshall will score the touchdown for the Red. Get down to the late going in the third quarter of this red-white game. Peavy trying to get rid of it, and finally does. A sidearm throw connects with Chris Jones, and Jones goes down the sideline for a big gainer. I think he stepped out of bounds, though. Back. Stop play briefly here. There's a bit of a special moment going on. Brett Bielema bringing in a special player. He told us there were going to be special guests. Mike Neighbors is on the sidelines. Mike, what can you tell us?
We've been waiting for this all day, guys. How about 31-year-old Kanan Sandy is going to be the special guest. Check out, he's going to be involved in the game plan here. We didn't know what Brett Bielema had up his sleeve, but Kanan Sandy is your guy from Cave City, Arkansas, 31 years old. How about that run, guys? I don't think he's going to be touched. He's a Hogs fan since he was 2 months old. That's when he attended his first game. His mother, Ginger, entered him in an ESPN contest for the 2013 ESPN Hall of Fame. Guys, he received over 100,000 votes. Back to you.
What an awesome moment for him, and he takes it to the house. He will remember that forever.
Best run of the day.
Kendrick Payne split wide to the left, and it's a draw play to Collins. Ooh, and he is hit hard right at the line of scrimmage with the number ones.
Well, I think that's really a good situation from Allen, for Austin Allen to be in that situation, to have that offensive line to do something.
Razorbacks over 208 on average last year. This time Allen's going to throw, and he lofts one up to the end zone. Nicely thrown, and connects for the touchdown to Cody Hollister. We will take a break and come back and wrap things up in Fayetteville in just a moment.
You look at Arkansas, they struggled last season, 0-8 in conference play, and it was a record-setting season, but not in a good way. They ended the season on a 9-game losing streak, but a new season means new hope for second-year head coach of the Razorbacks, Brett Bielema. Bielema's turn at the podium here at SEC Media Days in Hoover, Alabama, and with that, We listen in to the head coach
Thank you.
of Razorback
Great to
Nation.
be back. Just a couple things up front. I just want to say thank you to this room. Obviously, you guys have chosen a profession. You're in this room for a reason. You love your job and what it brings. For me as a head coach, I enjoy working with our media, sometimes a little bit more than others. But the part that I think is truly unique, and I feel this way every year I've been a head coach, and it's never wavered, is anything we can do to make your job a little easier, I definitely want to do it. I never try to stand in the way of information. I never try to stand in the way of anything but truth. Sometimes you may not agree with it or may not want to hear it, and I may feel the same way, but I do respect what you do and how you do it, and it makes our game as great as it can be. I think all the time about the SEC, especially coming here. I love to coach the game. I know that you report it. You love it. Our players love being a part of it. Our fans love being a part of it, and I think that's what makes it so cool. So appreciate that. I'll take a minute to talk about last year. That's about all I need to do. Pause and move on. We definitely did that during the spring, summer, and winter conditioning. I thought we had a group of young men that wanted to get better. 3 guys I brought with me today, starting with Trey Flowers. Last year's recruiting class, I think, was a good one, but the best recruit I could do was to keep him in our program. He's a kid that stands for everything that you want. He's a 3.0 plus student, academic all-SEC, probably one of the most tremendous workers. Anything that we ask him to do, selfish, unselfish, if we ask him to rush a passer, if we ask him to drop in his own coverage, he just says, I'll do it. He doesn't ask questions as why. He represents everything that you can ask for. And when I went at home, one of the disadvantages I had as a head coach at Arkansas is I didn't get to go in the home of every young man that is on our team. I think you learn a lot about a kid when you recruit him when he's 16, 17, 18 years old. You find out what made him who he is. You find out who made him what he was, and what can make him, do things better when you get him. So I had never been in Trey's home. I'd met his mom and dad and a couple of his family members, but last January when I went, or I guess it was December, had a chance to go over and visit with Trey and his family in his home about the decision. Was worth its weight in gold for me to find out exactly what it was that made him tick, and honored to have him back with us. He's a kid that will be done with his degree when his eligibility finishes up in December and move on to hopefully a great NFL career. Also on the defense side of the ball, I brought with me Alan Turner, someone that was our leading tackler from a year ago. It's never a good sign when your safety is a leading tackler, but it was the truth. He is a kid that got better every game, was not a starter at the beginning of the year, but got better every day. Really bought into what we were asking him to do. Tremendous competitor, plays with a lot of pride. I know to wear that hog on the side of his helmet means a lot to him, and is a guy that I really think might be posing himself into setting himself up for an extra special senior year. Offensively, I brought Bray Cook. He's actually got more starts on the offensive side of the football than anybody else on our roster. He's a young man that has continued to fight and get better every day. He was playing tackle when we first got there. We switched him to guard. We ended up bouncing him back out to tackle. He flourished in every game, playing at a level that he just continues to impress us, amaze us. His leadership skills have gone off the charts since we've been there. He does everything that we could actually dream of as coaches, and really honored to have those 3 guys represent us here. I think you should know I get a kick out of reading certain things, and I didn't bring the flashiest, I didn't bring the sexiest, I didn't bring the cutest. Everybody wants me to bring the quarterback, the pretty boys, everybody always popular. I brought 3 seniors that represent what hog football is all about. They represent all of the things on and off the field. They represent everything that I want in my program, and as a head coach, that's all I care about. I don't care about what the outside world perceives I should do. I care about what makes our program better. And when you take 3 seniors to represent our program, and I'll go back and show them footage and video clips and examples of what they say and what they speak to represent our program, speaks volumes, and it'll continue to grow from there. About this season, we had some transition on the coaching staff. We lost our defensive coordinator. We lost a defensive line coach and another secondary coach. It allowed me to improve our coaching staff in general. We stayed status quo on offense, had some transition on the off-the-field positions with our GAs, but defensively to add Rob Smith and what he brings to the table, couldn't be happier. I think he's going to bring a flavor of defense that is aggressive, lets our guys play with a simplistic manner, and lets them have a little bit of fun. To add Royce Segrest, our defensive line coach, has been a huge addition. And then in the back end, Clay Jennings that I brought from TCU has been a huge asset and just someone that I can't wait to see the results on the football field. Offensively, we bring back a starting quarterback in Brandon Allen that has had probably one of the best out of seasons that I've ever seen a positional player have, let alone a quarterback. Has gotten stronger. He's gotten better mentally. He understands expectations that he needs to fulfill as a quarterback. Around him, he's got 3 running backs that I think are exceptional, and Jonathan Williams, Alice Collins, and Corliss Marshall. At tight end, we add Hunter Henry back, who was a freshman sensation and All-American and does a lot of great things. But A.J. Derby, in my opinion, may be one of the surprises of not only our football team, but hopefully one of the best stories in the SEC this year. I think he's shown us in practice what he can be is truly exceptional. We got an offensive line that lost a couple tremendous players, but I think overall regained a strength that hopefully will be one of the biggest strengths in our program, not just this year, for years to come. Some of you that know my history know that I believe in building from the ground up, and the offensive line play will continue to get better, and we'll continue to recruit at a high level at that position. Wide receivers will probably be one of the greatest positions of emphasis during fall camp. Jared Cornelius and Cody Hollister, 2 receivers that we added last year in January, were very impressive during the spring drills. I think Keon Hatcher, Eric Hawkins, a couple other players from a year ago, and to get Demetrius Wilson back for his senior year will be great on defense. It all starts up front again. Have Trey Flowers return, Darius Philon, DeMarcus Hodge, a couple guys that got a little bit of limited role play last year in the middle that really jumped up in the back in the middle. Brooks Ellis has continued to move forward. Martrell Spade had an incredible spring, a guy that really began to become a playmaker that I think he can be. Braylon Mitchell at the Sam linebacker continue to show great leadership, and I think can have a great senior year in the back end, in addition to Alan Turner, to have Rohan Gaines, and then really 4 or 5 corners that might have been a position of weakness. I think if you probably talked to our opponents and got inside on their, if you could open up their scouting reports, it would have said expose our corners whenever possible. I think we took note of that. We made them take note of it, and I'd be very surprised if that's not one of the most improved positions on our team from a year ago to this year. So in the kicking game, we have a young man that if you get a chance to interview him, you'll definitely want to do it. Sam Irwin Hill is from Australia. He's got the accent and the humor and the quotation skills to gain your interest in a short amount of time. He can actually punt with both his right foot and his left foot. If anybody else in here can do that, I'd beg you to show me. He's a very talented player and a guy that will be an effective weapon for us. Our kicking game will be open to John Henson, and then we signed a freshman, Cole Headland, who's one of the most decorated kickers in high school football history, not just in the state of Texas, but in the country. So excited for those 3 units to work together, excited for the season, and open it up for some easy questions.
Okay, if you'll put up your hands, we'll get a microphone to you. Start all the way up here at the front with Parrish, over here to the left.
Parrish Alford with the Daily Journal in Tupelo, Mississippi. You guys were close in a couple of SEC games at the end last year. What kept you from breaking through, and how close do you feel you are to your first SEC win?
Parrish, I think that's a great question. I think the first thing that I have to take our players understand, and our coaches, every game is won or lost, but a lot of times teams lose the game before you win it. And I mean that, and if you don't understand it, it's probably why you don't coach. It's just the fact that there's a lot of times that you do things that prevent you from winning more so than the team that executes it. And I'm not taking away from what the other team does or anything like that, but as a coach, you have to be mindful of what did you do to prevent it. And if you're not giving the right answers, we got a problem. So I think as coaches, we need to take a practical look at what we were asking our kids to do. If we can't do it, don't call it. Don't try to get them to do it. Understand what our players can execute. On the flip side of it, to let our players know if you do something right in the second quarter, we surely expect you to do it as well in the fourth quarter, if not better. So there's a little bit of a marriage of a common ground there. As close as we are, the proof is going to be in the pudding in every aspect of our program. If you sat down and interviewed my AD, I think he would tell you that in every aspect other than wins, or people that are inside our program on a daily basis, you can't be happy. You can't do anything but be happy with what we've done. We've increased GPA. We've increased accountability. We've increased our APR. We were very, very close to becoming ineligible for bowl activity because of our APR when I took over. All those things are just skyrocketing. Our community service, our kids aren't getting in trouble. We don't have off the field issues. We're doing all these positive things that lead me to believe that they're learning and understanding what we're asking them to do. And when that thing comes full full circle. We're going to start to win, and we win. It's going to be easier to contain and maintain a winning style than it is this other thing that we've been living through.
Coach, we'll go over to the right and about 3/4 away, Brandon.
Brandon Marcello, AL.com. Brett, Monday, Gus Malzahn said that he has respect for you and that the two of you, quote, communicate. I was wondering, what do you guys communicate about? What kind of conversations do you have? And as a follow-up to that, have you guys had a face-to-face conversation about player safety?
I think first and foremost, I get what you guys have to do. It's a natural story. I get it, that we don't necessarily see eye to eye on certain things. But I think the greatest thing I've learned in life is you respect the opposite of what you believe in more than anything, that do it well. And by that I mean Gus runs an offensive style and philosophy that is completely opposite of what I believe in, but who can argue with its success? That makes me respect him even more. As far as communicating, we've talked on the phone maybe a couple different times about different issues. None of them have been player safety related, I can assure you that. But we do have conversations within the room of SEC coaches that are very, very respectful and very, I think, true. I think he doesn't hold anything back. I don't hold anything back. Have a tremendous respect for him and his staff, what they did. I think it's a tool to motivate my crew right now, to be a team that a year ago wasn't thought to be able to accomplish much, and to be where they are at the end of last year speaks volumes about that staff and those players. So it's nothing but tremendous amount of respect. And I can't say that we're breaking bread together and going to dinner when we can, but I'm not throwing bread at him and rocks and everything else. I think it's just what it is, and greatly respect it.
Okay, we'll go over here on the left, about 4 rows back.
Coach Todd Palmer, Kansas City Star. I was curious about your thoughts about the rivalry with Missouri. I mean, obviously you haven't played much. Do you feel like it's being forced a little bit, and what do you see as the future prospects for this yearly game?
Forced or whatever it is what it is. I think the part that I really believe in is no matter what the situation is, you wrap your arms around it, you kiss it, you hug it, and make it great. We've been told that we're going to play Missouri and our permanent crossover. We've been told this year that it gets to be played on a Friday after Thanksgiving. Those things, that's awesome. I don't think you could ask for anything better. For us to get to play the beginning of the year with the team that represented the East and the West, and the team that plays at the end of the year ago represented the East. I mean, nobody else gets to do that. Nobody else gets to have that schedule. It's awesome. It was voted #1 toughest in the country. That's absolutely awesome. Last year we were 5. We tried to move up. We got to #1. That's awesome. So I think the part that we have to embrace is it is what it is. I think to play on a Friday, especially being Missouri with a border battle and all that entails, and to have the recruiting things and all the little things around it, I think it can be and build into something special.
Coach, we'll go over to the right side, Steve. Right next door.
Hey, Coach. Bruce Marshall at the Sports Byline. Real quick, we hear a lot about recruiting players, but we don't hear a lot about recruiting coaches. And you mentioned you made some staff changes in the offseason. I know Coach Partridge took the FAU job. The process of replacing coaches like that, tell us a little bit about that. Are there back channels? Some assistants might be looking to move up. There's recruiting things to that process, how it works, finding new coaches for your staff.
That's a great question. I think that I learned this one early on. I learned this one from my predecessors, whether it be when I was with Coach Fry, when I was with Coach Ferentz, when I was with Bill Snyder and with Barry Alvarez. I was around them. I remember distinctly being around Coach Ferentz when he took over Iowa and he began to bring in these coaches, and I'd say I was the only holdover. I was the only guy. Well, Chuck Long was there, but he wasn't really involved in a lot of the hires. I would sit in every meeting. I would watch Coach Ferentz interview the coaches, and I'd say, why are you talking to this guy? Why are you talking to this guy? I remember I sat in a car and Coach Ferentz was interviewing someone, and he was talking to Coach Fisher, who was then with the Titans, and I was like psyched that I was in the car when somebody was talking to Coach Fisher, and I just thought that was cool, and why did you? Well, he thinks the world of him, and he likes and he respects him, so I made this phone call, and that's how the whole thing started. When I hired my first staff, I had 9 coaches, that I had to hire. I had a staff that I had been a part of, and I had to fire 7 of them. I kept 2 off the staff that I worked with at the University of Wisconsin, and those 2 I kept, Paul Christ and Henry Mason, were great assets to my staff. But I went and hired 7 other coaches that none of them were my friends. The only guy that I kind of knew was Kerry Cooks, who played for me a little bit. He's now at Notre Dame, but I really don't want to hire friends. I've never made that my mission. Rob Smith this year I hired, you may not want to tell him, but he really wasn't a friend of mine. He's just an acquaintance. But he's a guy I'd known for a long time and shared a lot of memories with, and I think that's a positive thing. But you got to understand, when I got hired, I was 34 years old. I didn't know a lot of people. I had to rely upon on coaches that were older than me that I didn't know, and thankfully we had a lot of success. So I learned some things then that really helped me now. The 3 hires I got, Roy Segrist is probably not a sexy hire. He's a guy that was at Samford. I first became aware of him because I started watching Samford when we were getting ready to play him. Their defensive tackles were awesome. They were incredible on special teams. So I do this brilliant thing. I go to the internet and look up who their D tackle and special teams coach is. It's the same guy. I walk up to him after the game and say, hey, I just think the world of what you coach. Lo and behold, a couple months later, I make a phone call and ask him to apply for a D-line job, and he beat out every candidate hands down, and I'm glad I got him. Rob Smith I'd known for a long time because I knew who he was and what he stood for, but the reason I hired Rob Smith wasn't because we shared an apartment together for 3 months. It wasn't because I knew his wife and set him up. He still owes me a lot of money for that and all that other jazz. It's because everywhere he went, he got promoted. He went to Maine as I think the corners coach. The next year he was a DB coach. The next year he was a coordinator. The next year he was assistant head coach. Then he goes to Rutgers. The first year he's a corners coach. Then he's a linebackers coach. Then he's a defensive coordinator. And then they get taken to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he gets promoted. It's just, you don't promote people that you don't know are good. And that's why I hired Rob. And last and foremost, Clay Jennings, who I didn't know at all. I maybe met him once or twice on a recruiting trail. I really wanted the best DB coach in the country. I wanted someone that coached both the secondary, corner, and safety positions. I didn't care if, what background they were from, small school, big school, didn't care anything about it except for I wanted the best. And here comes this guy that's coaching at TCU, who Gary Patterson has had great defenses, and this guy's been a part of it for 6 years. I bring him in. Randy Shannon had worked with him, but I kind of found him on my own and brought him in for an interview, and lo and behold, he's been a great asset to our program. Randy Shannon, here's a guy that I don't like to talk about it, but I told, I beat Randy in a bowl game. He was the head coach of Miami, and a lot of times that becomes adversarial. It built a friendship between us that 2 weeks after the game, I needed a position, and I called and he said, do you know of anybody that might fit this position? This is what I'm looking for. Do you have any idea? And he gave me a great coach. I had him for 1 year, and then the NFL took him away from me. So I built a relationship, I think, with Randy that has persevered to where we are now that makes that relationship so strong. So I think to recruit coaches is a very unique thing if you're going to do it successfully.
Okay, we'll go here in the center, about 4 rows back right in front. Coach.
Coach Jordan Simeon, touchdownalabama.net. I just want to know from you, first year in the SEC in the books, what was the biggest culture shock for you switching from coaching in the Big Ten to coaching in the SEC?
Winning versus losing. Yep. It's quite simple. I'd been able to have a tremendous amount of success. I'd won 3 straight championships, but that's why I came here. I didn't come here to lose. I didn't expect to go 3-9, but on the same account, I didn't expect to win it my first year. So what I've done is sustained what I believe helps you win. Understand that the only way to change the results of a 3-9 season is to change what you do or what you're doing. We didn't whole-scale change. We're still a certain type of offense. We're still a certain type of defense, and we're going to put an emphasis on special teams. We're just going to do it a lot better. And we've done a lot of little things that are going to affect the big picture. So I get excited because I think the things that we've shown have shown they can win in this league, and the year 2, although we don't know the record yet, my full hard belief is it's going to be a lot better than year 1. How many wins that pertains to is going to be determined on a weekly basis, but I do know it's going to be better.
Okay, we'll stay here in the front section, 3rd row right in front, Coach.
Connor Riley with the Red and Black. Last year was your first year in the SEC. What did you learn, not just about your team and about the conference, but about yourself?
About myself? I think the biggest thing I took away, especially after the season, is you have to be true to who you are and what you've been. Don't flinch. There's a lot of times there's some teams that go through some adversity, and for sure a team that doesn't win a game in their conference race, they're going to change out philosophy. You got a new idea. You got a new this, new that. I believe you have to do what you do better. I'm not going to change. You're going to change little things, absolutely. You're going to change personnel. You're going to change the way you do things, the way you communicate, but don't change what is the core fundamentals of what you believe in. I'm not going to a no-huddle, hurry-up offense. I'm not going to a blitzing defense or a cover zero defense. We're going to stick to our principles and do it better. And as a head coach, I need to enforce that daily.
All right, we'll go to the middle section, about 3/4 of the way back.
Andrew McLean, WDNG, the Blowtorch. Coach, you made the comments that you weren't looking to have a player coming off legal issues as a transfer. What kind of standard do you hold for players that transfer to your program?
I think that if I could take a moment just to educate that question and just others, the quote that got blown up, I didn't even know the day that I gave an interview the story that another player had transferred to a different school that we used to recruit. Someone asked me the question about, we took Sebastian Chitola, who was a junior college transfer, and we actually took Cameron Jefferson, who's a kid from UNLV that is going to transfer to us as a senior because of certain NCAA rules that allows a team that didn't hit an APR number to transfer. And what I said about him pertaining to Cameron, I said, here's a young man that has had no social issues. When I take a transfer like in that situation, I'm going to take someone that I believe enhances our program. Cameron was a junior captain. He's graduated from an undergrad before his senior year. He stands for everything that is right in college football. And I'm going to bring him into our program because the people I have to appease more than anything, no media, no administrator, no fan, I have to appease our team. And when you have a senior or a junior, someone that's transferred in late in your career, they have to bring a certain amount of value and a standard that we believed core to what we are. And every program is different. Everybody's got their own philosophy. For me to have success, I need to bring in someone that I can say, listen, this is what we're talking about. This is the standard that we're trying to uphold. Can you match it? And that's how I go about our business.
Okay, we'll go over here to the left with Olin in the middle, second row.
We'll get to you, Bob.
Thank you.
You kind of ran out of questions the other day.
Olin Buchanan, TexAgs.com. Coach, another coach today said the suggestion that fast-paced offenses pose a health issue, and he called that fiction. Just two part. Number one, if you kind of...
What was that?
I'm sorry. Another coach said the suggestion that the fast-paced offenses pose a health issue is fiction. So I ask if, number one, have you softened your position on that at all? And number two, you play a lot of teams on your schedule this year that have that style of offense, and have you done anything different in preparation for those, for playing that many teams with that style of play?
Well, not to carry from last year, but I'm probably more of a reality-based movie guy more than fiction, I guess. So I think I deal more in what I know and what I see and what I believe. Have I softened in my view of fast-paced offenses? The only thing I'm going to say to that is if you're asking me in that tense, you're probably saying have I softened my view on player safety, and the answer would be no. If I recruit somebody and bring them into our family, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that they're the most well-equipped, most educated, to make player safety a premium in our program. I really like the fact that, last year we made a big stance in college football about targeting. I sat on the player committee 2 years ago. We didn't make such a big wave as we did this year when we talked about 10-second rule, but we made a huge statement in that player safety meeting to emphasize targeting. And look at the effect it had. It was very, very positive. Every week I would show our players clips of players that were hit with targeting fouls and why they happened, and that would lead to certain players being ejected from the game. I firmly believe right now the reason Arkansas never had a call against them is because of the education that we gave them as coaches. So I firmly believe that, yes, our responsibility as coaches is player safety. And however that comes about, whether it be a 10-second rule in the future, whether it be a substitution mandatory rule that a committee comes in place and sets in college football, I think the game is going to be a safer one because of it. As far as playing no-huddle offenses, it is absolutely probably one of the most enjoyable things I can have as a coach. We played Oregon in a Rose Bowl. Lost a heartbreaker at the end, and I believe it was a field goal or 2-point difference, whatever it was. I mean, it was a back-and-forth game. There's nothing more enjoyable to see a no-huddle offense that's sitting on the sideline and can't stand it. But to do that, you have to play really good defense, and you have to play well on offense. For my formula to work and complete wins, you have to be able to be good offensively, defensively, and on special teams. All three have to work together. A lot of times, no-huddle offenses can play really good offense and bad defense and still win. That's just not how I'm gonna work.
Okay, we'll stay on this left side, Pat, and about 3/4 of the way back.
I have seen a good couple fiction movies, though, so I know.
Okay.
I know fiction when I see it.
Okay, let's go up here to Bob. Bob Lowe.
Had to give you guys one to run.
Hey, Brett, you mentioned Cameron Jefferson a minute ago. What was it about him that you guys really liked that caused you to recruit him? And you had a revolving door at left guard in the spring. Do you expect him to come in and take that spot over for you?
Again, Bob, I think it's a great question. I tell you what, I was sitting, I believe, in an airport and got an email from one of my coaches that said that, hey, another school in our conference was having a player from UNLV on a campus visit because of the APR rule that allows seniors to transfer because of the lack of APR that sets this whole thing in place. So I contact Jim Chaney. I said, hey, just looking at our depth, what we need and what we are, they have a tight end, a couple offensive linemen, a wide receiver, and if you want to take a peek, because he was one of the coaches in the office, I think they got a middle linebacker and a safety. Take a peek. Well, he went through. Jim's great with personnel and everything else. He went through and he said, really, Brett, the one guy to keep coming back to is Cameron Jefferson. So I look up his bio. I read everything up. Now, I haven't seen an ounce of clip of film on him. I'm going off my offensive coordinator and a guy that knows personnel. So I look up his bio. I read all about him. I see him as a captain. I realize his dad played in the NFL, had a couple, 2 or 3 different teams. Realized that his dad had traveled, I believe, from Maryland, played in Detroit, ended up in Vegas. The kid was born and raised in Vegas, wanted to play for his home team. And I said, let's take a swing at this guy. He seems to represent everything that embodies what I'm looking for. And I get back on campus. I love his film. He seems to play with an attitude. He kind of, borderline plays a little bit nasty, the way I think we got to play. Let's talk to him about what we do with offensive linemen. And the kid came on campus and just loved what he saw. And it was an instant, our players, I wanted him to meet every offensive player. I wanted him to sit down with Brandon Allen. I wanted to sit down with our skill. I wanted him to sit down with our offensive linemen, and that brought us to the opportunity to offer him a scholarship. Needless to say, it wasn't a popular decision for him back at UNLV, and the kid has done nothing but done everything we've asked him to do and persevered, and we're excited to get him in our program.
We have time for a couple more. We'll go over on the right. Dwayne.
Coach, this is a 2-part question. 1, how do you feel about opening up against Auburn? And 2, in light of the situation with Nick Marshall, will you prepare for the possibility of having to face Jeremy Johnson instead of Nick Marshall?
I guess that deserves a 2-part answer. I think first and foremost, to play Auburn up front, to play a team that played in the national championship game can be nothing but a positive. It's a motivating factor for us year-round from the time it was announced to where we are today. Usually practice 1 through 10 is pretty high intensity. 10 through 20 tends to fall off a little bit. I think if I show them a couple clips of Auburn in the national championship game, they'll probably get their attention in a hurry. A lot of common grounds between us and Auburn, so there's a lot of things that are motivating, from players and coaches and all that involves. As far as who we're going to play, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Nick and what he did a year ago as a quarterback, grew every game, and to see him play in a championship game. And I think, knowing what I know as a head coach, Nick will be there. I think that we want to play against the best, and I'm sure he'll be there. Everybody has different rules. Every school has a different set of. A lot of times, those situations, even though coaches don't comment on it, a lot of things, those are determined before they ever happen. If a kid has a certain problem, there's things in place right now where I don't even have to make a decision. We know the answer. Administrators and personnel and the universities themselves a lot of times have agendas and just a checklist. Okay, he did this. This is what happened. happens. If the area gets a little bit gray, then you have a chance to be inconsistent and get bad results or inconsistent results. So I'm sure it's very clear at Auburn.
Okay, well, I'll take one final question here on the left, third row.
Hey, Coach Derek from GoodBullHunting.com. The A&M Arkansas series goes back to Dallas this year, which is traditionally a recruiting hotbed for Arkansas. Is that after the 2018 and the contract runs out? Would you like to see that game stay in Dallas or move back to the campuses?
Without a doubt. For us, we call them Tex Hogs. We go into Texas and try to recruit as many Arkansas players as we can. Obviously, with the state border, you have Jerry Jones, who is obviously stands for everything that is in the NFL, and he's one of the hugest Hog fans you'll ever meet. I heard him give a speech where he was quoted as saying, that to have the Super Bowl, to have all these high-profile events in his stadium, but to have Texas A&M play Arkansas is one of the most rewarding in his career. And for a guy to say that means that we want to stay true to that tradition. Personally, I love, Kevin and I go way back coaching against each other in the Big Ten. So, to be able to compete against him on that level, but to go to a kid in the state of Texas and let him know every year you're going to play in Cowboy Stadium. I mean, nobody else in the SEC can say that except for the guys at A&M. So that's a huge recruiting advantage and one that we're going to capitalize on to the fullest.
Coach Bielema, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Go Hogs.
Bielema, year 2 goes what?
I'm going to say 4 wins. I think Arkansas is a way better team than they are last year, but it doesn't necessarily show up in the record. Again, Arkansas does a great job running the football. I went back this morning. I watched their final 2 regular season games last year. They're good in the short passing game, but they've got to find a way to be so much more explosive. Quarterback Brandon Allen needs to get more accurate, especially when pushing the ball downfield. Completed less than 50% of his throws. A receiver's got to step up for Keon Hatcher and help him. The running back group is unbelievable, but someone's got to get better in the passing game for Arkansas. It's a brutal schedule.
I'm slightly more optimistic on you. I don't know where it's going to come from. When I go and just look at the wins, I can only see 3, but somewhere along the line, I think they'll pick up an additional 2. I'll go with 5 wins. I think Brett Bielema, the commitment to the run game is really what's going to separate them. It takes a while. You talk about a turnover in what you want as far as personnel goes, and it doesn't get more drastic from the Petrino era at Arkansas to the Bielema era. So I think there's some transition there. We talked yesterday about Tennessee's fan base having to be patient. I think you're going to have to see the exact same thing with Arkansas. 5 wins are where I have them pegged.
Yeah, the schedule is brutal. They're at Auburn and at Texas Tech.
Northern Illinois, 4 straight years of 11 or more wins, and a new defensive coordinator in Rob Smith. They need to create more turnovers. There's a lot of question marks still out there for them.
Williams, Collins, and Marshall, though, as your running backs. I mean, they're loaded.
They'll get a lot of work. Great tight ends as well.
The part that is intriguing to me is the pay for play, for student athletes, like Dan just mentioned. I mean, I don't want to necessarily put a lot of cash in someone's pocket because that could lead to bad things as well. But to tell a young man, if you are fortunate enough to go to the college football playoffs and your mom and dad can't come and watch you play because they can't afford a plane ticket, to me, that's wrong.
Welcome to College Football Live. Chris Cotter along with Andre Ware. Jeff Long, Arkansas AD, and also the chairman of the selection committee is here with us. And it's very appropriate because Tom Osborne in the news here over these last couple of days talking about the recusal policy and how he, a member of the 13-member committee, is going to say, you know what, when you're talking about Nebraska, I'll pull myself out. But this is all part of what you're going to talk about next week when you meet, isn't it? It is.
Finalizing the recusal policy will be one of the agenda items this week, or next week, in Colorado Springs. And from there, we'll also look at a number of mock selections that we're planning to do with the committee.
I want to follow up on that recusal policy thing because it seems to me when I look at the 13 members, and whether it's a Pat Hayden, whether it's a Condoleezza Rice and her ties to Stanford, everybody has not just one tie, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5 ties. Oliver Luck is a good example. He's got a couple of them in there. How do you deal with that?
Well, I think the simplest is going to be where we end up. And again, we'll finalize it this week. But as you guys point out, once you connect all the dots, you would virtually have nobody in the room to make a selection. So I think you'll see a simpler rather than a more complex. And we'll finalize that here in August.
As a fan watching the whole process take place, the 13 members, as if I'm at the University of Houston or Oklahoma, how do you put me at ease that this is going to be a smooth transition in terms of when you're all in a room together trying to circulate through teams that you may be talking about?
Well, first of all, I do think you have to look at the integrity of the people that have gathered on this committee. I think they're people that people respect across the country. And you know what? We've made it important to this committee that you check those biases that may be there or perceived biases there. And then we come in and we act in the best interest of college football because all of us in that rooms are fanned of college football too. So we want to act in the best interest. We truly do, and we will be working very hard to do that.
Part of, to Andre's point, your first poll comes out on October 28th, or first poll rankings, I guess is a better way to put it. But is that sort of to ease everybody into that Final Four so that they don't get a shock at the end of the year when people are believing we're going to be a part of that Final Four, and then they're not?
Yes, I would certainly say that part of ranking early is to relieve steam from that pressure cooker, because it will be a pressure cooker. And, our fans have come to expect polls. They want to know where their team ranks. Yep. How do they fit in? Where are they with 7, 8 games into the season? So we'll provide that. We'll rank through 25, and you will, as a fan base, get to know where your team is. Now, there's still enough of that season left that they can improve their position.
I think it's an outstanding idea, because who knows how good teams are at the beginning of the season. In October, by then, you got a pretty good grasp of how things are going. Will it be a weekly poll from that point on where fans kind of see the ramp up towards the end of the season in the Final Four?
Yes, I think it's important for fans to know. We'll start, our first poll comes out October 28th. We will meet every week there to the rest of the season on Monday and Tuesday in Dallas, and we will have only face-to-face meetings before we put out a ranking. So we won't meet by teleconference. We'll be in person, debating, looking at each team, comparing them to each other.
Awesome.
How much, when you talk about the data, and part of the data is just watching games and the eyeball test and the gut, that I think this team is better than that team, but you're going to have to tell the 5th place team and the 6th place team, this is exactly why you're not in the Final Four. So what type of empirical data are you going to have to be able to present to people to say, this is exactly why you're not there?
Well, a couple of answers to that. First of all, we're going to have more data than we could possibly use. I mean, we've got everything that you could possibly want. But then, the human element is important to this process. If it wasn't, we would go by the polls or the former BCS. The human element is the thing I think most fans at this point are missing. There are going to be 13 people in there debating these teams, comparing them side by side, week by week. Mm-hmm. And I think at the end of that process, there'll be no more thorough investigation of every one of those teams to come up with that top 4.
One of the things I liked, in my opinion, that I thought was important is strength of schedule. And if you're the Power 5 conferences especially, because I think that's where it's going to come down to in terms of determining a national champion.
This year he got better at passing, better at running, better at making reads, so on and so forth. Had a lot of glowing things to say about him. Then he finished it with this. So I know for a fact he'll win the Heisman. That's a definitive statement right there. Is he right, Chris? Will he win the Heisman?
Maybe Jeremy's got a vote. We don't know about that. I don't think he does. I think Nick is.
He better have a lot of votes.
He's got another year in Gus's system, so he'll be much better passer. I don't think he wins the Heisman. I think Mariota, Winston, one of those guys does.
He's got a very good chance to win the Heisman. The thing is, Johnson should not be putting that kind of pressure. He thought he was doing his starting quarterback, his buddy, a favor.
Doing him a solid.
That actually gets people talking about not why Nick Marshall will be good, but why Nick Marshall is inadequate to win the Heisman. But the thing is, as great as he was last year, this year with just a small improvement of the passing game, he will have a quantum leap in performance. And RG3 showed us a few years ago that you don't have to win your conference to win the Heisman anymore.
The one thing about quarterbacks in this conference, too, last year was about the quarterbacks with McCarron and Murray and Mettenberger, guys coming back. This year, you don't have as many as we can see some of these quarterbacks. And there you have Bo Wallace. You think he's being disrespected a little bit there at Ole Miss? Clearly the veteran of this group.
He is the veteran, and nobody's really talking about him. He talked about that at SEC Media Days. They're going through all SEC teams, and Bo Wallace was nowhere near the top. I think he's the key for Ole Miss this year, the preseason top 20 team. He's the key, and Hugh Freeze has said, I hope that means a lot for us, and I think it will.